You put away $500 a month. Nothing dramatic, just automatic. 20 years later, that quiet habit has become more than $1 million. Not because you earned a huge salary, not because you timed the market perfectly, but because the money started working harder than you did. Most people understand compound growth in theory. They nod at the graphs, yet they still treat investing like an optional hobby instead of the silent engine that turns ordinary earnings into real security. In the USA, UK, and across Europe right now in 2026, that gap between understanding and action matters more than ever. Living costs remain high. State pensions and social security will cover only part of what most need. And the window for letting time do the heavy lifting is quietly closing for millions. This is not a lecture about getting rich quick. It is about the mechanics that actually move the needle over decades, how consistent investing in the right accounts turns small, regular contributions into the difference between scraping by in retirement and living with real choice. Let's walk through how it actually works step by step, without the usual hype. The core idea is deceptively simple. When you invest money, it can generate returns. Those returns then generate their own returns. Over time, the growth feeds on itself. This is compounding. Albert Einstein reportedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he said it or not, the math holds. Imagine two people. Both earn a steady income in their 20s. Person A starts putting $300 a month into a retirement account at age 25 and keeps going until 65. Person B waits until age 45 to start the same $300 monthly habit. Assuming an average annual return of 7% after inflation and fees, a reasonable long-term expectation for a diversified stock-heavy portfolio, the difference at retirement is stark. Person A ends up with roughly $700,000 to $800,000. Person B, despite contributing the same monthly amount for the same number of years in absolute terms, finishes with less than half that. The early starter benefits from 30 extra years of compounding. The later starter fights against a shorter runway. Time is not money. Time multiplied by consistent action is, but raw compounding alone is not enough. Where you put the money matters. This is where retirement accounts in the US, UK, and Europe become powerful. They do not just hold investments, they change the tax rules in your favor, letting more of your money stay invested and grow uninterrupted. In the United States, the 401k remains one of the strongest tools available. For 2026, you can contribute up to $24,500 of your pre-tax salary. If you are 50 or older, you can add another $8,000 as a catch-up contribution. Those aged 60 to 63 may qualify for a higher super catch-up of $11,250. Many employers still offer a match, often 3% to 6% of your salary. That match is free money. Turning it down is like refusing a direct pay raise. The traditional 401k lets you reduce your taxable income today. The money grows tax-deferred. You pay income tax only when you withdraw in retirement. A Roth 401k works the other way. You pay tax now on contributions, but qualified withdrawals, including all growth, come out tax-free. For younger workers who expect to be in a higher tax bracket later, or who want flexibility, the Roth option has grown in popularity. If you do not have access to a 401k or want to save more, the Individual Retirement Account, IRA, offers another route. The 2026 contribution limit is $7,500, with an extra $1,100 catch-up for those 50 and older. Traditional IRAs may offer a tax deduction depending on income and workplace plan coverage. Roth IRAs do not give an upfront deduction but provide tax-free growth and withdrawals. These limits sound modest on their own, yet when contributed consistently and invested in low-cost index funds that track broad markets, they compound powerfully. A young professional maxing a 401k with even a partial employer match can build serious wealth by their 60s without ever feeling like they are living like a monk. Now cross the Atlantic to the United Kingdom. The workplace pension, especially with auto-enrollment, has quietly become one of the most effective retirement vehicles. Employers must contribute and employees benefit from tax relief at their marginal rate. Basic rate taxpayers effectively get 20% added by the government, higher rate payers more. The annual allowance sits at £60,000 or 100% of earnings, whichever is lower. Most people never hit that ceiling. Outside the workplace, the Stocks and Shares ISA offers a different but complementary advantage. For the 2026/27 tax year, you can invest up to £20,000 per year with no tax on dividends, interest, or capital gains inside the account. Many use their ISA allowance for taxable brokerage investments they want to keep flexible, while routing core retirement money through the pension for the upfront tax relief. Across much of Europe, the picture varies by country, but the principle stays similar. Tax-advantaged retirement schemes, whether called pensions, Riester in Germany or other national plans, reward consistent contributions with tax breaks or matching incentives. The common thread is this: governments across these regions want people to save privately because public systems face demographic pressure. Longer lifespans and fewer workers per retiree mean the safety net alone is unlikely to deliver the lifestyle most expect. The uncomfortable reality beneath the numbers is how slowly compounding feels at first. In the early years, the balance barely moves. You contribute $500 a month, and after 12 months, you have roughly $6,000 plus a few hundred in returns. It looks insignificant compared with rent, groceries, or the new car your colleague just bought. That slow start is exactly why so many quit or never begin. They underestimate the backloaded nature of the math. Run the numbers out further, and the curve bends upward. Between years 15 and 30, the growth often exceeds the total amount you personally contributed. At that stage, the portfolio starts generating meaningful income even if you stop adding new money. This is when the eighth wonder reveals itself. Your past discipline begins paying your future bills. Yet popular culture rarely shows this reality. Social media highlights overnight crypto winners or property flips that made someone a millionaire by 35. Those stories exist, but they are exceptions soaked in survivorship, bias, and luck. The boring, repeatable path, automating contributions into diversified, low-cost funds inside tax-advantaged accounts, has created far more millionaires quietly than any viral success tale. Dollar-cost averaging sits at the heart of consistent investing. Instead of trying to predict market tops and bottoms, you invest a fixed amount on a regular schedule. When prices are high, you buy fewer shares. When prices fall, you buy more. Over decades, this smooths volatility and removes the impossible task of perfect timing. Markets rise over long periods, but they do so with stomach-churning drops along the way. The investor who keeps buying through the crashes captures the recovery. Consider someone in 2008 who stopped contributing during the financial crisis out of fear. They missed the strong rebound that followed. The person who continued investing through the fear ended up with significantly more by 2020. The same pattern repeated in 2020 during the pandemic crash and in other corrections since. Consistency beats timing. Risk remains real. Stocks can fall 30% or more in a bad year. A balanced portfolio with bonds reduces that volatility, but also caps upside. As you age, gradually shifting toward more conservative holdings makes sense. The exact glide path depends on your risk tolerance and how close you are to needing the money. A 25-year-old can afford to ride out storms. A 60-year-old cannot. Fees matter more than most admit. A fund charging 1.5% annually might sound reasonable until you realize that over 40 years it can consume a quarter or more of your potential wealth. Low-cost index funds and ETFs that track the total stock market or global equities often charge 0.05% to 0.20%. That small difference compounds powerfully in the investor's favor. Inflation is the silent thief. Cash sitting in a regular savings account may feel safe, but after inflation, it often loses purchasing power. In 2026, with inflation still a background concern across the US, UK, and Europe, investments that historically return above inflation become essential for preserving lifestyle. The broader implication is sobering. Many people in their 40s and 50s today look at projected retirement shortfalls and feel panic. They ask how they can catch up. The honest answer is painful. Late starts require either much higher savings rates, working longer, or accepting a more modest retirement. There is no magic shortcut that reliably erases decades of missed compounding. That is why the advice to start early is repeated so often. It is not marketing, it is arithmetic. Yet even starting small late is better than doing nothing. A 50-year-old who begins contributing the maximum catch-up amounts and invests sensibly can still add meaningful security. Every extra year of consistent action reduces pressure later. Zoom out further, and the societal stakes appear. Across the US, UK, and Europe, retirement readiness varies widely. Some have employer plans and high savings rates. Others rely almost entirely on state provisions that were designed for different demographics. The gap between those who understood compounding early and those who did not is widening. It affects not just individual comfort, but public finances, inheritance patterns, and even political expectations around pensions. So what does consistent investing actually demand? Not genius, not perfect markets. It demands three things most people already possess, but rarely apply to money: discipline, automation, and patience. Set up automatic transfers the day after payday so the money never reaches your spending account. Choose simple, diversified investments inside tax-advantaged wrappers. Ignore daily market noise. Review once or twice a year, rebalance if needed, and let time do its work. The final uncomfortable truth is this: compound growth rewards those who begin before they feel ready and continue even when progress feels invisible. It punishes delay more harshly than most expect. In 2026, with contribution limits increased slightly, $24,500 for the US 401k, £20,000 for the UK ISA, and equivalent opportunities elsewhere. The tools are available. The question is whether the habit forms. If you are watching this and your savings feel behind, the math is not kind, but it is not finished either. Start where you are. Increase the contribution by even 1 percentage point of salary this year. Add the employer match if you have not already. The gap between doing nothing and doing something consistently is larger than the gap between good and perfect. The money you invest today does not just sit there. It recruits future dollars to work on your behalf. Decade after decade, that quiet recruitment can turn an ordinary career into a retirement with real options. The ability to work because you want to, not because you have to travel without counting every pound or dollar, to face health surprises without immediate financial terror. Most people will never feel the full force of compounding in their 20s because the numbers look too small. By the time the numbers look impressive, the best years for starting have passed. That is the quiet tragedy hidden inside the eighth wonder. The question that remains is simple and personal. Not how much you wish you had started earlier, but what small, consistent action you are willing to lock in today that your future self will thank you for decades from now. Because in the end, compound growth does not care about your intentions. It only counts what actually gets invested year after year inside accounts designed to protect and multiply it.